broadcasting the Talk to Doc today and letting folks know what's going on in the medical field.
Yeah, there's so much I think people need to be informed about. And, a lot of the topics we discuss are topics that I have in the office every day. They're questions that people have when they see me. And I figure your listeners probably, many of them have the same questions. So that's often what prompts us to have the topics we have.
It sure does. And today's topic is tick and Lyme disease.
Right. A pretty common problem. And we see a lot of this. People are outside in their yards, in the woods, and they come in with tick bites or, sometimes you can't tell if it's a tick bite or what it is. But it's really important, especially with Lyme disease, that we prevent it, that we know what to look for, and we make sure we get it treated right away if we think somebody's had a tick bite with a Lyme disease infection.
Has that been a lot seen here recently, or just going by statistics from last year? How is that?
Well, it's this particular tick that carries this bacteria called Lyme disease has moved from the East Coast through Pennsylvania into the eastern part of Ohio. So there's some pockets here in Ohio and in this county where there's very heavily populated Lyme disease infections and ticks that carry this disease. So, yeah, I think a lot of the listeners have probably been bit by one of these ticks, carry the disease, and so, we need to know about that. We need to be aware of it.
Now, is that unusual be this time of the year? Or
no, actually, it's interesting. There's the smallest tick, sort of the baby tick of this particular type of tick, is bites commonly in the summer and the spring, and then the larger adult tick is more prevalent in the winter months when the temperature is just above, I think, about 35 degrees. Anything below 35 degrees, they're not very active, but you can get bit even in the colder months by the adult tick. But the smaller tick, the nymph tick is what we call it. It's at a nymph stage. It's actually, if you look at a dime, an American dime, and you look at the letters on the dime, the Lyme disease tick is about the size of the letter, but the nymph, the immature small form of this tick, is about the size half of a letter. So really, really small. If you don't look, you might not even know that you've been bit.
It just amazes me that they, when I of course had a tick many years ago, but you wouldn't really think of it or notice it until things got warmer and grass or weeds are higher, things of that nature.
Well, it's interesting because if you want to know where ticks hang out, where they're most prevalent, it's right on the edge between a grass or an open field and the edge of the woods. So if you've got a lawn and there's woods at the edge of the lawn, right at that transition point is where the ticks are. And I think they're strategically placed there to jump on animals or any other vector that is passing through that area. So a lot of people, though, have tick bites, and they're fully clothed. They'll come in after being out in the yard or the woods all day, and they'll take their pants off, and there's a tick bite behind their calf. It just sort of works its way up the pant leg and up the leg, and there it is. Or maybe it's on your back and it drops in the back of your shirt and sort of wiggles down to the middle of your back. So you got to really look when you've been outside.
Right. Is there anything that attracts ticks to humans or even animals?
No, I don't know of anything that attracts them. They're just opportunistic animals that when they find an animal that they can jump on and feed off of, they'll do it. So I know I was talking to a veterinarian recently, and he was telling me that there was I forget what type of bird it was, but it carries this vector, and this particular bird was dead, and they found over 200 ticks on this one bird. So it's amazing that the birds carry it to the deer, and the deer bring it into the fields, and then other animals, and then us as well. So a lot of animals carry it. Most animals aren't affected by Lyme disease. It's more of a human type of an infection that we're susceptible to. So deers can survive these ticks, but we can get pretty sick from them.
Sure. And any precautions that you recommend for people?
Well, the most important thing is to check yourself every day, especially if you're outside near the woods or someplace where you think you might have considered a tick bite. So check yourself or have somebody else look in places maybe you can't see. When you see a tick attached, It doesn't mean it's Lyme disease. There's a lot of ticks that are sort of innocuous and they won't hurt you. But the best way to remove them was with a pair of tweezers. And you grab the tweezers down at the base of the skin and pull straight out with a steady pull. You don't twist. You don't try to burn it off with a match or put petroleum jelly on or something like that. That's we've heard all kinds of different ways to get these off. But you want to make sure you get the head and the mouth off of the skin, and then you wash the skin really well.
Right.
And it takes just because you've been bit by a tick, just because you have a tick on your skin and you pull it off, it doesn't mean you're going to get an infection. It doesn't mean it's Lyme disease. This is spread through their saliva, and they have to be attached for several hours, typically, before they can potentially spread this disease. And then what you have to do is look for the symptoms of a Lyme disease type of infection. And that would be fevers, chills, headache, and there's a characteristic rash. We call it erythema migrans, and it looks like a bullseye. So it's sort of round with a ring around it, and it's a red rash.
Right.
And if you see that, then that's obviously something that alerts us, and sometimes we can do blood tests to confirm this. But often, if we think you've got that rash and you've got some symptoms, we'll treat it, and it's very treatable with antibiotics.
Yeah, I won't say how old I am, but the first thing I thought of, and I had chuckle, said no match. And of course, we were led to believe we got to put the flame to it,
right,
to get it out of there.
Yeah, I've done that too in the past. Growing up, and sometimes I remember having these ticks, seeing them on the dog or even on myself, and there's these big. They look like they're going to explode with blood.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Those are not the Lyme disease carrying tick. Again, these ticks that carry Lyme disease are very small. And again, think of a dime and the letters on the dime. The adult Lyme disease carrying tick is about the size of one of those letters, and then the nymph, or the small immature tick that is more commonly the carrier, is about half of one of those letters. So they're really small. You've got to look.
Sure.
You're going to be able to see them. But sometimes I see patients come in the office, they've been bit by a tick, and they take it off, but they're not sure it's gone.
Right.
So they'll want me to take a look at it. And a few times, just a few weeks ago, I actually numbed the person up and sort of made an incision and kind of dug it out, and it turned out to be it was just a scab. So just because you see something dark down there doesn't mean it's a head or a leg or
Sure.
a part of the tick. But, if there's a question, you probably ought to be seen and checked out.
Right. Well, Doc, a lot of information on this Tuesday morning, as always. But anything else to close out the tick and Lyme conversation?
No, I think, information is power. And I always recommend when people have questions about different types of infections, the CDC website is a good resource. And of course, people Google this all the time. But, you don't want to just rely on any place you go on the Internet. And the CDC is an excellent a resource. So it's cdc.gov. Ohio Health, the Department of Ohio Health also is a good website to go to. But these are very reliable resources that give you great information, give you pictures, and a really good understanding of what's going on and what you should do if you think you might have been bit.
Well, Doc, as I say, a lot of great information. We appreciate you coming in this morning. Always look forward to Tuesday mornings to get another chapter of health, direction when we, of course, per season, like you just talked today's topic, this is a time of the year to be aware of ticks.
I think we should respect them, but again, like everything else, not panic, and information is power.
Sure. That's going to take care with Talk to the Doc, being sponsored by the friends over at Twin City Chiropractic, located at 205 Grant Street in downtown Denison. They specialize in personalized chiropractic care, incorporating some nutrition along with the treatment and best practices to promote for healing and wellness. Also, thanks to the friends at Mako's Market and Pharmacy, in the pharmacy department, where they have been serving the customers in the community for a number of years for assistance with comparing and selecting a plan based on your specific prescription needs. Call Mako's Market at 740-922-5400.